Hi everyone, I'm Genevieve Raghu and I'm actually a Norwich High School alumna. I went to Norwich High from the age of 5 to 18, so definitely a GDST girl through and through. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here today as part of this conference, albeit virtually. So now I work in the arts and the education sector as a director. I've worked in theatre and opera and arts education in Europe, in London's West End, and across the UK. Now I'm the founding artistic director and the chief executive of a charity called Into Opera, which, as you might have guessed, is all about getting more people into opera. So we look for imaginative and empowering, engaging new ways to introduce opera, this art form which of course encompasses music and drama and dance and design and languages and written word, to brand new audiences. A lot of our work's in education, so we look for ways to break down geographic or economic, social barriers that might prevent people from accessing this art form. So I was at Norwich High for 13 years, a long time, and I've got to say that one of the things I'm most grateful for from my education, and I'm talking from junior right through to senior, was that Norwich High really allowed me to exercise and nurture my creativity. I believe that creativity has become one of the most valuable skills we can have. It gives you an edge, it gives you an advantage, and it certainly means you bring that added value to any situation, I think, in your personal life or work life. Creativity drives innovation, and it truly helps you to become someone with the potential to be a change maker. So when I was invited to prepare a presentation for the GDST Changemakers Conference, I've got to say I didn't really question for a minute what I wanted to talk about. I knew that I would want to talk to you today about creativity. So what's the first thing that you think of when you hear the word creativity? In a school context, you might think of art classes or school plays, composing music, writing poems. You might think about creative places. So, theatres, art galleries, libraries, concert halls. You may think about careers and what we often hear described as the UK's creative industries, which include sectors such as film and TV, advertising, architecture, video game design, the performing arts, of course, fashion design, publishing. The UK's creative industries are actually one of the fastest growing sectors in the country and worth over £100 billion. They are certainly doing something right. But anything else? Creativity. From what I've already said, you'll see that the arts tend to feature quite a lot when we talk about creativity. But you know, creativity is not the preserve of the arts alone. And at this point, it's probably worth being really clear about what we mean by creativity. Many people have tried to define creativity, and a common theme across different definitions seems to be that it is a personal activity intent on producing something new. A really important piece of research was published recently, actually just back in October 2019. And this is a report called the Durham Commission on Creativity and Education, which looks at the importance of creativity and its role in education. You will see that I have thoroughly thumbed through this copy, but if you're interested, this is all available online, so just give it a Google, Durham Commission, and you can read it yourself. Now, the definition of creativity in this report is as follows: the capacity to imagine, conceive, express, or make something that was not there before. And we are all certainly facing a problem right now that was not there before. Right now, what we're waiting for with bated breath is creativity in science. We are waiting for that news bulletin which says that due to scientists' creativity, We have a vaccine to help control or even defeat coronavirus. Creativity is all around us at the moment. We've seen across social media how businesses have been trying to think creatively about how they can been trying to change their production lines and pivot. Take theatres, they're all closed right now, but many wardrobe departments are continuing to work, creating scrubs for NHS workers. The multinational brewery and pub chain Brewdog, well, they've switched from beer production to hand sanitizer. Hotels, well, they've been become like quarantine facilities, or they've offered accommodation for the homeless. Restaurants, well, we've all seen them increasingly devising ways to offer home delivery or even grocery services. So there are fantastic examples, I could go on and on, of creativity all around us, particularly right now. And what about us at home? How are we being creative? Well, I've certainly lost track of the number of times I've concocted recipes from whatever is left over in the fridge. Sometimes successful, sometimes less so. I've had friends who have told me that their recycling box has basically become a children's toy box now, as they've invented extraordinary creations with their children. We've seen rainbows painted by children in windows, and everyone, well, a lot of people, seem to be jumping onto TikTok, a platform which encourages personal creativity and a sharing of performed human experiences. TikTok seems to be managing to capture the creative ingenuity coming out of social isolation, driven by this need to entertain ourselves and entertain others, and our desire for some form of generalised connection with the world. So creativity is literally all around us. Creativity is a universal human ability. We all have it in us. Being able to be creative, thinking in novel and useful ways, solving problems, it's one of the defining features of the human species. It's a distinctive advantage that we have. It increases our likelihood of survival to be able to imagine the other. New ways of working, new ways of living. Imagining that, it's such a valuable asset. And we all have the ability to be creative. But some people exercise that muscle that bit more than others. And it's useful to think of it like a muscle, because it does need exercising. And you know what? The arts really do help to nurture creativity and exercise that muscle. I always personally think about creativity as though it's like my secret weapon. Thinking back, studying music and drama, for example, at A-level, this really helped to foster my creativity and to exercise it. In drama on a weekly basis, I was using my imagination, role-playing in different scenarios and in investigating human relationships, being playful, taking risks. I actually started directing when I was at school. I basically just haven't stopped since. But when I was directing at school, I was trying to think about my personal take on a show, what I wanted to say with it, my creative vision. In music, I was effectively thinking in sound, finding new ways and new medium with which to express myself and my teenage emotions. I performed a lot creatively, interpreting other people's music. And by doing this with my music class at school, each of us as individuals experience this shared vulnerability, if you know what I mean, about sharing our creative ideas in front of other people and putting them out there. But you know what? Our confidence in this grew the more times we did it, and we became bolder and more confident. And I genuinely believe that these art subjects that I took at school nurtured my creativity no end, and it's given me such an advantage in life. From having confidence in my own voice, to thinking creatively about how I might adapt my communication style to different people and different audiences. And trust me, I have needed creativity. I now, as I mentioned, run a charity called Into Opera. Take a look, we can be found online at into-opera.org.uk. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, a lot. And this week alone, just to give you an insight, I have needed creativity to help me with a lot of jobs. So I've created a new production concept. So one of the things we're hoping to do, probably in 2021 now, is to stage a big classic opera. And I've been working on creating my own personal angle on this story to increase its relevance today when we stage it. So that's been occupying me a lot. I've written a libretto because I'm currently in the process of commissioning a new composer to write an opera for family audiences based on a well-known children's storybook. It's a project I'm really excited about. There's a few details on the website if you're curious. But I've been taking this well-known children's storybook and I've been looking at that and using it as inspiration to create new words that the composer will set to music, which we call writing a libretto. It's like writing song lyrics, and I've been having a lot of fun doing that. A real creativity test. Something else I've been doing, I've been developing a business plan. Not what you might automatically think of as a creative exercise, but trust me, it is. Remember our definition of creativity? The capacity to imagine, conceive, express or make something that was not there before. Only a few months ago, theatres and schools were well and truly open and Into Opera was incredibly busy. Now, theatres shut, schools shut. It's a very different situation, a very uncertain environment, which requires a brand new business plan and a lot of thinking outside the box, because we're in a completely different situation now. It's much more unstable and a little bit worrying for an arts charity like mine. So creativity is absolutely needed to reimagine what Into Opera might be able to offer communities, schools, audiences, possibly even care homes at this time. But we have to find and plan for new opportunities. And that requires an awful lot of creativity. One last thing I've been doing this week. I've been devising new public-facing activities. So some of that's begun already. In a fortnight, Into Opera will be releasing a podcast titled How Did You Get Into Opera? And we'll be creatively... we've been creatively devising this way to record and produce this remotely because I've been interviewing a wide range of creative practitioners, from singers and designers to chief executives and producers, and of course we can't be in the same room, so we've had to devise this setup where it'll work for us to hold these interviews remotely and still be recorded to a really high quality. So that's really put my creativity to the test. But the purpose of this podcast is to highlight pathways into the arts sector. We know how many students, potentially just like yourself, are missing out on university open days, for example, right now. So I really hope that this podcast will provide some valuable careers insight and inspiration about what career opportunities there might be in the arts sector, which you might be interested in. As part of doing this podcast, I've also been developing a brand identity for it and collaborating with a designer to produce artwork for the cover and promotional materials. So you see, my creativity has been stretched in all sorts of different ways and applied into different projects and different needs that we've had to face as a charity just over the last week. And I've also had so many phone calls with singers, charity trustees, teachers, designers, funding organisations, university professors, banks. I've done careers mentoring for 16-year-olds. I've spoken to nurses and carers, composers and writers about new business opportunities. Us desperately needing funding right now. Looking for ways that we can support the care sector and education system. From 16-year-olds to over 65s, and not in person, over the phone or on Zoom with this physical distance between us. in these instances, one communication style does not fit all. And being able to think creatively on your feet, that's been absolutely paramount. So, thinking back to my experiences at school and taking those different art subjects, I, hand on heart, truly believe that they did help nurture my creativity, and that has helped me no end in my adult life and my working life. I think it's also just worth touching on employability, because creativity is becoming increasingly sought after by employers. A survey by IBM 10 years back in 2010 of more than 1,500 chief executives from 60 countries and 33 industries ranked creativity as the top skill needed for future success in business, and the skill needed most to help navigate an increasingly complex world. In the Durham Commission that I mentioned earlier, this one, there's a really, really interesting section about how jobs that require repetitive tasks are disappearing because they can be automated. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? It goes so far as to say that creative occupations, so that can encompass jobs like software development or biochemical engineering, as well as those from the creative industries, are in general more resistant to automation and are likely to employ a larger share of the human workforce in the future. Again, all makes sense. It's just worth keeping that in mind and knowing about it. So the Commission also features a case study on the North East Automotive Alliance, which looks at engineering and how too few women end up in this profession. And the interview featured says that the cultivation of creativity through young people's education, from primary education right through to university, is essential for engineering and manufacturing. And they go on to emphasise how for engineering, it's helpful to have studied art right through to GCSE, as it helps learners to visualise, to think visually, and to offer them this opportunity to generate their own individual creativity, their own ideas, and also to collaborate around those ideas. So I think that's quite an interesting little case study as well. So in short, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that creativity matters. There's a book that I'd really recommend if this has inspired you at all, or you're now curious about reading a little bit more into this, because there's some great work out there on creativity and its value. And this one is called The Virtuous Circle: Why Creativity and Cultural Education Count. And the book puts it really well. It says, creativity is integral to everything we do. It inspires innovation, improving our environment, our products, our businesses, and the quality of our lives. Creativity needs to be seen as a prime objective for every child engaged in the UK education system. And, I couldn't put it better myself. Yes, I completely agree. Creativity needs to be seen as a prime objective for every child engaged in the UK's education system. And into what we're ourselves, we're about to actually launch a project, when it's possible to work back in schools again, to champion the importance of creativity in education. And we're becoming a resident company in primary schools for 2 years to do exactly that. Support teachers to foster creativity in the classroom. Lots more about that on our website. There is another book actually that I'd really recommend, which is called Out of Our Minds: Learning to be Creative, and that's by Sir Ken Robinson. This book was written to highlight why creativity matters, and why some people think they're not creative and what they can do about it. Now, just read a short little section of the book, because it presents a really interesting perspective on creativity. Creativity is sometimes associated with free expression, which is partly why some people worry about creativity in education. Critics think of children running wild and knocking down the furniture rather than getting on with serious work. Being creative does usually involve playing with ideas and having fun. enjoyment and imagination. But creativity is also about working in a highly focused way on ideas and projects, crafting them into their best forms and making critical judgments along the way about which work best and why. In every discipline, creativity also draws on skill, knowledge, and control. It's not only about letting go, it's also about holding on. So a lot to think about there. He says that creativity requires critical judgment. Is what I'm producing truly novel, any good, of value? Ensuring your creativity is developed morally and with wisdom. There are countless examples of the dark side of creativity when it's coupled with immorality. We see this in crime, we see this in terrorism, we see this in countless examples in history. So Ken also highlights play here and the freedom and the permission to be silly that comes with that, as well as really focusing on personal creative projects, drawing on knowledge and showing control. I wanted to make a video which championed and promoted the importance of creativity because I think it's particularly pertinent right now. During this period of social distancing, we certainly have a lot more time to think. Everything has slowed down, I think it's fair to say. So please use this as an opportunity to channel your creativity and do something positive. Small things from cooking and reading and singing to bigger, personal, inventive projects. I know that human connection and interaction can often be the inspiration for creative activity. I certainly feel that right now. But you know what? Sometimes the best creative ideas and discoveries can come out of difficult and challenging circumstances. Look for inspiration in your surroundings. You might be surprised what's there. Think creatively about what creativity could happen from home and from your kitchen table. If you want a starting place, and it's really silly this, start with a paperclip. Yeah, you heard me right, start with a paperclip. How many different ways could you use this paperclip? I kid you not, this has kept me busy for hours, and I love this little game from... It could be a hair clip, it could be a bookmark. I remember a friend once saying it could be cufflinks, and him actually turning up and going out with cufflinks as paper clips once. But it's something very silly and it might just cause a little bit of laughter at home. But make a list or experiment practically. Just use something like that to get the cogs whirring. It's a starting place and it's a little bit of fun. But if you do want more ideas, which are perhaps slightly more substantial than that one, feel free to get in touch by email to me personally, or head over to the Into Opera website and see what Into Opera are doing right now. If you subscribe to our mailing list, then you'll be told you'll get an email when new episodes of this podcast are released, and in our conversations with a wide range of creative practitioners that I'm interviewing, I'll be asking them how they've been creative in lockdown, and there have been some great ones so far. And they might well fire up some ideas for you as well about things you could be doing. Or if you have a creative idea about something Into Opera could be doing, knowing that we're a charity interested in connecting communities through drama and music and dance and design and literature, well, send me your ideas. Send me an email. Like every organisation right now, we are having to think afresh and be creative. So if you think there's a gap and there's something we could be doing, offering, helping, something we could be doing, or there's some way you'd like to help us, that would be wonderful. Please let me know, get in touch. I will always welcome new ideas and I'd love to hear from any of you. Also, if you have any questions about anything I've talked about today, please don't hesitate to send me a little message. So, looking at the time, I'd better finish off. Final words. To thrive in this ever-changing world, we all need creativity, and that needs exercising from an early age. If we're going to develop the next generation of politicians, scientists, entrepreneurs and artists who will discover, imagine and lead. then it's imperative for creativity to thrive. Starting at school, starting with you. Our world is changing faster than ever. We are facing challenges that are unprecedented. So if there were ever a time for creativity, it's now. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that in some way this has been helpful. If you want to continue the conversation, then send me an email. But in the meantime, thank you very much and stay safe. Bye.